Good morning, y'all. It's time for Horizons, and it's also time for Revenge. We start this one off with Roy mulling over Ryme's tough love, but he doesn't despair for long. Although, I almost wish he did. I felt like this could have been a moment that was ruminated in a bit longer, but maybe it would have been odd for Roy to be down bad worse about this than Goth Rayquaza, so maybe I just feel like older series had great timing for letting defeat Sting linger. So, rather than send Roy off to get demolished twice, Nemona offers to enroll him in Nemona's amazing training. Even though we are still pretty early into the kid's journey, they are definitely facing powerhouses, so I am very glad to see some training. It also serves the purpose of making the power scaling feel not too wonky. So yeah, we finally get to see the kids do some sparring with each other, and Nemona's plan is to help them boost speed and power. Even if the others can't keep pace, Roy is motivated by the power of vengeance. And it is understandable that maybe Dot and Flory aren't quite as invested. A+ Igloo though. Once their bodies are warmed up, it becomes a full-on assault against Roy and Fuecoco. It's such a highlight that the new scenery, music, the sparring session all make this episode feel so fresh. As far as the training goes, they're covering all their bases, physical and mental. I also want to mention that with Nemona acting sort of like Roy's mentor, I'm so intrigued to see how he'll eventually bridge the gap between them. Unexpectedly, while they were discussing the rematch, Roy shows us a family photo that segues us into his backstory. In the many ways Horizons has attempted to be distinct from the Ashname, Roy actually has a father too! Not to mention, he is invested in Roy's life! The whole family seems to be tight, really. Together, they sing this lovely seafarer to the waters as the sun sets behind them, creating this gorgeous backdrop. Roy's positive disposition, love for music, and Pokemon, it all seems to stem from his upbringing. It's a pretty picture-perfect family unit until they eventually hit him with the "Bye, son!" taking off to do some work at sea, hence the reason Roy was raised by his grandpa. It's genuinely neat to see how rooted Roy's personality is in his home, and he doesn't forget where he comes from. One of the main reasons he even continues to sing is because he misses his parents, but hey, at least he has them. This flashback certainly caught me off guard, but it really does give more weight to the songs Roy makes. That's great too when it's arguably his defining character trait. To me, sharing these songs with Fuecoco, it almost feels like he's calling Fuecoco family. So, back with Ryme, they've got some nightlife happening and it seems like a place I'd want to be. At this point, the kids almost have a better social life than I do. They're in the middle of some festivities in which Quaxwell takes the initiative to volunteer Liko and Dot for. It's a fun yet time-consuming artillery game that I do think could have been time spent elsewhere. Anyways though, Florgato plays along and shoots the berries off the kids like a true sniper, buying enough time until the man of the hour arrives. It's a bit crazy to have back-to-back Ryme battles with no space in between because it feels like there's only so much that can happen in an afternoon's training. But I think there's more to it than that. Now, one key difference in this battle is that it's a one-on-one, which is pretty unfortunate. Personally, I really am fine with that, but I could see it being understandably frustrating for people who think the kid's secondary Pokemon are getting snubbled. In a sense though, this felt like one of Roy's most crucial battles to win, so who else could it have been but Fuecoco? Not only was this his chance to redeem his last match, but also prove his relationship with the Croc. The atmosphere of this match really helps to do that too. One of the interesting things is just how much of this match happens in silence. We're left to just focus on Roy and Fuecoco's voices, which is the bedrock of their dynamic. Eventually though, some high-octane fiddle music kicks in to make this battle feel like a hootenanny. By contrast to the last, this battle has a very unserious flavor to it, but it does make it feel like Roy's more in control here. In fact, him and Fuecoco are so in sync, they're the ones that push Ryme to terastalize. The thing though is a large part of Roy's failure last episode was timing Terastal wrong. I feel like here though, this had to be the moment for Roy to terastalize if he didn't want to get obliterated again. It almost makes the timing thing go out the window, but regardless, I have to point out the choreography here. Very quick and fluid movements akin to XY. With their swift movements, they even managed to back Ryme into a corner and shock Toxtricity with one heck of a flamethrower. And once the smoke clears, a victory is unveiled for Roy. Of course, he takes a moment to show his friends some appreciation, but I really feel like this was less about the training in of itself. More so, I feel like it was about reminding Roy where his strength comes from. You know, his friends, family, the Croc, and the music that's brought them together. To me, that is where Roy's victory against Ryme came from, and it would have been nice to really see her give him his flowers. But in its stead, we will happily take a win for Roy. Man, there are some notable pros and cons for me this episode, some that prevent it from being the A it could have been. At least to me. No complaints about the family stuff. Sure, Roy has a standard, well-adjusted family, but he's clearly impacted by their departure. It really makes me want to see how does that affect him. Is there resentment, insecurity, or motivation to follow their lead? I lean towards motivation and understanding Roy's sharp jump and power here. What I did really like about this match though is it didn't feel so much like Roy leveled up, but more of a return to form. As in, he could have done this in the first place, but they needed to revitalize what Fuecoco and him already have inside, which I do hope eventually will outpour into an evolution. So, taking this episode, the bad with the good, I give it a C.